Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be checking out another one of the move update Pokemon for Season 13 of Go Battle League, Incinerate PYROAR. PYROAR is a fire and normal type Pokemon with the moveset of Incinerate, Flame Charge, and I'm running the surprise nuke move of Solar Beam. Now, prior to this move update, PYROAR had basically no play whatsoever, so I am hoping that Incinerate will at least give it a little bit of fringe viability. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out Incinerate PYROAR in action in the Great League Remix Cup. Hopping to the first match, picking up a very nice lead, Toxicroak into Shadow Machamp, and Machamp is staying in this matchup, which definitely means something in the back is also weak to Toxicroak. If that's the case, I want to try and preserve HP, so I am going to shield up the Cross Chop, fire up one counter, wait a turn, and then go for the Mud Bomb. Is my opponent willing to give up their shield here? They are not. My opponent is going to send in Frostlass, immediate save switch into PYROAR, and in the back they have Aurorus. I'm farming up, and I am going straight for the Solar Beam. Do they respect the damage? They do not! PYROAR one-shots. Back in comes Frostlass. Frostlass only can throw resistant charge moves here. Avalanche is not gonna KO. PYROAR continuing to spam out these charge moves. Flame Charge coming through. Flame Charge gets the shield. Frostlass looking for the farm down. They get there, but they are low enough where Magcargo can safely farm down, and that is a good game. Dream lead in the next match, Toxicroak into Obstagoon. Opponent is going to immediately save switch into Pelipper, and this is incredibly bad. One of this team's many weaknesses, it is triple weak to Pelipper. I send in Rock Throw Magcargo, but one Weather Ball is nearly enough to one-shot. My plan is to tank one, shield one, and then hopefully be able to farm all the way down. This is going to be close. Magcargo barely able to survive, and down goes Pelipper. I do leave with an Overheat loaded, so when they bring back in the Obstagoon, I will be able to connect with the Overheat. They're probably not going to shield this, knowing that their Goon is going to be switch locked into a Toxicroak. I bring in Toxicroak right away. I get the farm down in the back. They have Pidgeot, but importantly, they are running Wing Attack. If they had Gust here, the game would basically be over because Gust does a lot of fast move pressure, but Wing Attack does not hit very hard. So I'm going to send in PYROAR and just call a Feather Dance. My opponent fires off the Feather Dance. That is perfectly fine by me. They've lowered my attack. Time to raise my attack back up with a Flame Charge. Flame Charge gets the shield. PYROAR continues to farm. They're just going to keep spamming out these Feather Dances. So I'm going to let this go. PYROAR barely able to reach a last second move. This Flame Charge is going to be getting the Pidgeot low. Pidgeot is going to get the farm down. Back in comes Toxicroak. Toxicroak is going to be able to take this game. I can commit the shield on the Feather Dance, counter all the way down, and secure the win. Picking up a neutral lead in the next match, Toxicroak into Ninetales. I'm going to save switch into PYROAR, and my opponent responds with a Blastoise. These water guns are tearing through PYROAR, but I'm able to make it to the Solar Beam. Do they respect it? They do not! And bye-bye Blastoise. Opponent is going to send back in the Ninetales. Ninetales looking to farm all the way down here. Now that they know that I can't hit them for even neutral damage. I fire off the Flame Charge. They're going to let that through, commit to the farm down, but their energy is going to be pretty useless against Magcargo. I'm going to let this move through. They fire off the Weather Ball. That does absolutely nothing. I'm just going to continue to farm. These Rock Throws eating away at Ninetales' health. They go for the Overheat. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Moving into the next match, picking up a tough lead, Toxicroak into Frostlass. I have two responses in the back, so I'm going to throw one counter, save switch into PYROAR, and I am met with Double. Double, of course, is hitting for super effective damage with these double kicks, and the Body Slam is going to hurt as well. I'm not going to be able to reach a lot of moves, so I'm just going straight for the Solar Beam here. Solar Beam does get respected by the Double, and that is absolutely heartbreaking. I'm going to send in Toxicroak, and my goal here is to farm all the way down. They fire off the first Body Slam. That just does so much damage. Double is incredibly oppressive. I'm going to shield up the second one. I believe I should be able to counter down here, and I barely am. That's big. Opponent is going to send back in the Frostlass, and when they do, I need to bring in Magcargo. In comes Magcargo, but it's an Obstagoon in the back, and this is not great. Obstagoon is going to farm up. I try and go for the Overheat, but I end up losing CMP. I let this through. It's a Night Slash, and this Overheat is going to do massive damage onto the Obstagoon here. Overheat does get the shield. Obstagoon going for the farm down, but I can deny all of their energy with this loaded Sludge Bomb on Toxicroak. Toxicroak is going to deny Goon's energy, and now the question is, can I withstand the Powder Snows and get to double Mud Bomb? I fall just short. Same leads in the next match, Toxicroak into another Frostlass. Same game plan as before, I'll throw one counter and then save switch into Pyroar. Frostlass staying in here, and they send in Excadrill, and this is by no means a good counter to Pyroar. Pyroar fires off the Flame Charge, they commit the shield. They're farming up, but Exca is not tanky in the Great League, and these Incinerates are tearing it to shreds. Pyroar gets the farm down, and the opponent concedes the match. Great lead in the next match, Toxicroak into Shadow Lapras. This is exactly where I want to see it. My opponent is going to save switch into their own Toxicroak, and suddenly things get quite tricky. I'm forced to stay in this matchup because I have two Pokemon in the back that get absolutely torn to shreds by counter. My opponent is going to massively overfarm, fire off the Mud Bomb just before I reach my second Mud Bomb. I will commit the shield. Since I switched in and threw a charge move before they did, I will always be 2 turns ahead in this matchup, which is quite nice. I'm able to force the second shield. I'm going to continue to farm. At this point, I think I'm just going to let this go. Farm down with Pyroar, and then hopefully with an energy lead, I'll be able to outpace the Lapras and land the Solar Beam. I will have to commit my final shield here as a Mud Bomb would do massive damage. Pyroar is very glassy. Pyroar gets the farm down. Opponent sends in the Shadow Lapras. Here we go. We go for the Solar Beam, but they catch it onto Emolga. What an absolutely unreal catch by my opponent. You have got to be kidding me. That is an absolutely sensational play. My opponent is going to send back in Shadow Lapras, and they're going to perfectly overfarm here. So now they're going to be able to KO my Magcargo with a Shadow Surf, and they're going to be able to outpace the Pyroar as well. Beautiful plays from my opponent, and that is a good game. Bit of a tricky lead in the next match, Toxicroak into Hisuian Electrode. I will immediately save switch into Pyroar. My opponent is going to stay in here. They bank a Wild Charge for later, and they're going to send in Vigoroth. Very nice to bait out the counter user, and now I can just go straight for the Solar Beam. Solar Beam nearly one-shots the Vigoroth. They fire off a Body Slam on very low HP. This Body Slam is going to take out Pyroar, but honestly, that's fine by me. I've managed to bait out the counter user, and now hopefully Magcargo can close in the endgame. My opponent is going to send back in their Electrode. Electrode farming up, going for the Wild Charge, but loses CMP to Toxicroak. This Mud Bomb will hit for neutral here. We do see a shield from the Electrode. I'm just going to let the Toxicroak go, and I'm going to trust in Magcargo. Wild Charge nearly KOs. In comes Magcargo, and in the back, they have a Snowy Cast Form. A very cool team by my opponent, but unfortunately, they are ABA weak to fire, and that's exactly what I have in the back. Blizzard does a lot of resisted damage, but I'm just going to get to farm down with my Magcargo and fire off the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb takes out the Electrode, and that is a good game. Very similar lead in the next match, Toxicroak into a regular Electrode. I save switch into Pyroar, and it's a simultaneous save switch. Pyroar into Shadow Charizard. That is quite unfortunate there. Had I waited just a turn longer, I could have brought in Magcargo, fully farmed down the Charizard, but as is, I'm in a pretty rough spot here. Blast Burn, even though it's resisted, is still going to KO the Pyroar, and now I'm going to bring in Magcargo to get an energy lead. My opponent sends an Electrode, and this gives me hope. Maybe my opponent is running double flyers in the back, and if that's the case, then I need to protect Magcargo with all of my shields. I shield up the discharge. I'm going to fire off the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb will, of course, lower their attack, which is quite helpful. Rock Tomb gets the shield. The fact that they're shielding does give me hope that it is going to be a second flyer, so I'm going to invest my final shield here. Magcargo continues to farm. It's an Escavalier in the back, and I concede the match. Terrific lead in the next match, Toxicroak into another Obstagoon. Opponent is going to immediately save switch out of this matchup, and they send in Noctowl, and Rock Throw Magcargo is absolutely feasting in this matchup. They fire off the Shadow Ball, that does quite a bit of damage, and with the wing attacks, I'm honestly not sure if I would live a second Shadow Ball. So just to be safe, I'm going to be firing off the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb is going to guaranteed KO the Noctowl, and also mean that I get to keep switch advantage. Back in comes the Obstagoon. Obstagoon going going for the farm down, and they get it, but I'm going to bring in my Toxicroak right away. They're still switch locked, so I want to get as much damage off as I can before they're able to switch. I continue to farm. Their clock finally comes up, and they have Frostlass in the back, and they are absolutely walled by PYROAR. PYROAR absolutely crushes Frostlass in this meta, and PYROAR is ready to feast. Firing off the flame charge. This is a losing fight for Frostlass. They let it go. They send in the Obstagoon. Obstagoon gets farmed down, and that is a good game. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Toxicroak into Lurantis. Toxicroak walls all of Lurantis' charge moves, so I should be in a pretty nice spot here. They fire off the Leaf Blade. I'm going to be able to tank this no problem and continue to farm up. My opponent is going to save switch into an XL Whalmer, and this is quite bad. I have 2 fire types in the back, so I have to do whatever I can to get rid of this Whalmer. They'll fire off a charge move just before I'm able to get to my Mud Bomb. I will commit the shield, farm up to get them quite low, bring in PYROAR, and then snipe with an Incinerate. I have to hope they're weak in the back, but they are not at all. My opponent is running Extreme Spice with an XL Ammonite in the back. So they have 2 water types versus my 2 fire types. I have 1 hope, and it's the Solar Beam, but they commit the shield. My opponent respects the beam, and now basically, this game is over. There's not really a lot I can do here. My opponent bringing the absolute spice, and I got absolutely wrecked by it. I'm going to fire off this Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb is going to get shielded. Ammonite continues to farm. They do reach a last-second charge move. This will be KOing the Toxicroak. From here, there's nothing left to do but concede the match. Very tough lead in the next match, Toxicroak into Noctowl. I will need to immediately save switch out of here and send in PYROAR. My opponent is staying in this matchup, which works out a lot better for me. I would much rather have the Noctowl in this neutral matchup versus PYROAR than going up against the Toxicroak. Flame Charge gets the shield on the CMP tie. PYROAR is pretty glassy, so I am going to commit the shield and continue to farm. They are staying in here, and I'm able to reach a second Flame Charge. The game stuttered for a little bit there, but I am able to connect with the second Flame Charge. They fire off a charge move, and I get an entire Incinerate through. I will commit the shield on the Sky Attack. In the back, they have Excadrill, and look at the Incinerates go. Absolutely cooking the Exca. They're forced to shield, fire off a Drill Run right away, but this will set up a perfect farm down for Toxicroak. Toxicroak is going to get a nice amount of energy here, taking down the Exca. And the nice thing is, their Noctowl is so low that if they bring it in, I should be able to counter down before they reach a move. They have Steelix in the back, and all that's left is to switch after their 4th Dragon Tail to catch a Psychic Fangs. 3, 4, and we make the catch onto Magcargo, and that is game over. We catch the Psychic Fangs, and at this point, my opponent basically concedes the match. They don't hit the top left button, but they know it's over. They end up throwing a little bit, so I'm like, maybe they're not conceding, maybe they're trying to play it out, but either way, I have a pretty healthy Toxicroak, so we're in a very nice spot here. I decide to fire off the Overheat at the end, just to make the game end a little bit faster. Overheat, definitely overkill onto the Steelix, and that is a good game. Hopping into the final match, leading Toxicroak into Shadow Politoed. Definitely happy to catch the Toad on the lead, because Politoed would absolutely shred my backline. They go for Weather Ball right away, so I'm going to let this through. Weather Ball will do quite a bit of damage, and these Mud Shots are adding up as well. I'm going to farm up and fire off the Mud Bomb on the CMP tied to their next Weather Ball. My opponent is going to commit the shield, and I will definitely shield back. I need to get this counter damage off on the Politoed. Now I'm going to throw 3 counters here, wait a turn to make sure they don't catch, and fire off the Mud Bomb. Hoping they decide to let this through. My opponent is going to let it go. They have Mandibuzz. I save switch into PYROAR, and they send in Ferrothorn, and that is a good game. And now some final thoughts on PYROAR with its new move of Incinerate. First off, PYROAR definitely does appreciate the faster energy generation of Incinerate. Previously, it was stuck with Fire Fang, which while it does quite a bit of fast move pressure, really doesn't generate energy particularly quickly. And on top of that, as we've seen from other Incinerate users like Talonflame, Incinerate and Flame Charge do have very nice symmetry when it comes to moves, as you're going to need 3 Incinerates to the first, and 2 to the second. And for nuke moves, it's your choice of running Solar Beam, which I used, or you can also run Dark Pulse. However, where I do believe PYROAR falls flat is going to be its stats. It is pretty attack weighted, meaning that while it can output some damage, it really struggles in terms of being able to take a hit, and its typing being fire and normal, they don't add a lot of resistances to each other, so they typically end up just adding more weaknesses than anything. So the combination of rough stats plus a typing that isn't the best really does end up holding back PYROAR even despite the better move. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.